Binge. That's a weird word, isn't it? I looked it up. It's an English dialectal word from the 18th century, meaning or related to the word bilge, like the bottom of a boat. And to binge means to soak. A wooden boat, like a barge, a word to which binge is also related, needs to be soaked in water before it's put onto a river so that the wood will expand and prevent leaks. So to binge is to soak something until the point at which it expands, it swells up, which is appropriate because that's what happens when I binge. History is fun, isn't it? Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bad Country.
Loved you from the start, honey. Left your little heart.
I spent a lot of time in some of my earlier videos talking about how important it is to recognize that everybody is different and how we all experience alcoholism differently. And that's true. I stand by that. Everybody's experience of alcoholism is different. Except sometimes they're also exactly the same. I don't make the rules. I wish I did make the rules. But sometimes everybody's different and sometimes everybody's the same. What I mean by that is that all of our drinking and sobriety journeys are unique to us, but they share similarities. All of our stories have commonalities. In the course of making these little videos here on YouTube, I've come to realize that those similarities, they provide a kind of common ground. They provide some common ground even for people of vastly different backgrounds and life experiences. Recovery, in my experience, transcends questions of politics or identity or anatomy. We are united by our desire to improve our lives. That's universal. So today, I'm going to take you inside what one of my relapses is like, and I hope in doing so, someone who hasn't yet recognized how bad their problem is might see themselves in my story, at least to some degree, and then seek the support that they almost certainly need. Okay, so let's get weird. I'm going to do my best to describe what a typical alcoholic binge looks like for me. As a person with an episodic alcohol use disorder, which is the polite way to say a hopeless, suicidal, binge drinking alcoholic, I go months without drinking at all. And then for reasons that I've spent a lot of money trying and failing to figure out, I'll grab a bottle of vodka and just blow my whole fucking life up for a while. So for me, a relapse generally lasts about 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of nothing but alcohol. That would then be followed by at least a week of detox. And that's followed by a month of beginning to pick up the pieces again. And then things slowly start to get back to normal. But one slip, one relapse of 2 weeks will comfortably, easily set me back 6 months in terms of consequences, of lost trust, lost work, of health, of any kind of goals. They are drastically set back by even a short, relatively short 2-week relapse. Any progress that I've made is immediately out the window. And it's worth noting that before my alcoholism progressed into the binge drinking stage, I was actually what you might consider a functioning alcoholic. So that stage came before my very serious binge drinking. I was drunk virtually every day for years, but I managed to hold down my jobs, keep my relationships together. Even my fitness was still quite good, all of that stuff. I would drink on the way home from work. I would leave the office, be drinking by the time I got home. I'd be tipsy, then I would spend the evening, if we had no plans, just with my girlfriend. And then after she went to bed, I would be up until 2 a.m. drinking. And then the following morning, I would be up again in the gym at 7 a.m. and on time for work at 9. And I was able to do side projects and have a social life and travel and all of that stuff all at the same time, even while I was drunk for most of it. I managed to do that. I don't think you would have known that I was drinking vodka in the elevator on the way up to my office in the mornings before work. I was getting away with it for a while. But that can't last. And frankly, I hate with a vivid, visceral passion the phrase functioning alcoholic. In alcoholism, there is a lot of bullshittery. Functioning alcoholic is the worst of all of it. People who describe themselves as functioning alcoholics, as I just did, do so in with a hint of pride, like it's something like a humble brag. And I think that's because it has some kind of symmetry with phrases like high-functioning ADHD or autistic savant. It's admitting a flaw, but doing so in a way that's quite flattering to yourself. And that is a real cornerstone of bullshittery in alcoholism. It's very alcoholic behavior. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be so angry about this, but the active part of the phrase functioning alcoholic is not the word functioning, it's the word alcoholic. You know what I hear when someone says they're a functioning alcoholic? I just hear alcoholic. That's all that matters. Unless the word preceding alcoholic is recovering, then it doesn't matter what it is. You're a functioning alcoholic, you're an alcoholic. Stop lying to yourself. I got sidetracked already. This is going to be a long video, I need to get through this. Come on. This episode is sponsored by Hibiscus. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, so back to those 2-week binges. Those 2-week binges doesn't sound like very much time, but they are vicious. They are obliteratively destructive. It's 2 weeks of some completely, totally other guy at the wheel. 2 weeks of some wild animal just pulling the levers inside my head. There is no control. I feel like I'm watching it all happen on CCTV. Whoever that relapse guy is, it's not the same guy as the guy sat in this chair right now. Except, unfortunately, it is exactly the same guy. He is me, and I am him. And I hope that you never have to meet him, because I hate him, and he hates me. So let's get into it. This is what a kind of 2-week binge looks like for me. And do me a favor, if you're so inclined, subscribe if you like this kind of laid-back style of video. My goal is to create sobriety videos, sobriety content you can fall asleep to. And if that's your vibe, if that's your jam, then please do give it a like and subscribe so that I know. For the sake of this description, let's just go ahead and assume that whatever has led to the relapse has already happened. We'll deal with that kind of thing in another video. But there tends to be a period of knowing a relapse is imminent, and then an acceptance that it is inevitable. And then there will be an urge to drink. I will feel like the scratch. I will feel the alcoholic excuses in my head become overwhelming, impossible to ignore. And they do such a good job of justifying themselves that at some point the relapse is inevitable, and then I'll pick up a drink. Sometimes I even look forward to it. Sometimes I've kind of booked out, not consciously, but I've booked out time in my calendar, usually when my girlfriend is away, in order to have that relapse to myself. That's my time. For this, I'm going to pick a very specific relapse that really happened in order to keep the details specific and useful. And this one actually began after an AA event in a sunny field in Berlin some time ago. It was very far from my house, and this particular event was so crushingly depressing that I knew I was going to relapse before I turned up. I kind of manifested it, I suppose. I left early. I walked out and I walked straight from the AA event to a liquor store. The event was a short train journey from my apartment, or about a 2.5, 3 hour walk. And I chose to drink and walk that day. That was where the relapse began. The physical relapse, anyway. I tend to skip straight over the beer or wine, lower alcohol volume drinks, and go straight to spirits. Binge drinking for me, I'm there to get as drunk as possible, as quickly as possible. And therefore, I'm reaching straight for the vodka, or the gin, or the rum, or the whiskey. And in this example, I was outdoors already when it started. And I like that. I want to be alone in a binge session. I want my binge drinking periods to be lonely. And I want to be on the edge of crowds, which is why at the start of a relapse like this, I quite like being in public. And I like observing other people, but not being a part of it. I like that feeling of isolation. I crave it, even in sobriety. I like the feeling of anonymity, of being on the outside. Relapses are not spontaneous for me anymore. There'll be a period of anticipation before I grab that first drink. And afterwards, everyone always tells me that they could see the relapse coming. Everybody seems to know apart from me. And I'll be anxious and spiky, dismissive, pushing people away, being unnecessarily cruel or critical or hurtful. And there's a deep desire to be alone, an actual desire to spend some time feeling sorry for myself. But then the process of actually acquiring the alcohol, of buying the drinks, that's usually a relatively happy one. I will feel nervous and there's a rush of excitement about it, like I'm doing something naughty. There's something very slightly sexual about it, something sexy, like your first cigarette. I remember mine, and I remember that being a relatively sexual experience too. And that's how I feel when I'm walking to the cashier with a bottle of cheap vodka. And it doesn't matter what brand it is. I have no loyalty when I'm buying alcohol. The only loyalty I have is to the alcohol. It doesn't matter what's on the label. I'll do some quick maths. I'll run some numbers in my head just to make sure I'm getting the most possible alcohol for the price, for the least money. So it's usually a liter bottle of one of those random, vaguely Russian sounding drinks like Khrushchev or Tchaikovsky or Chekhov or something. Anyway, while I'm buying the first bottle for the relapse, there's no eye contact with the cashier, no conversation. I don't have time. I'm goal oriented at that point. The whole purpose is to get drunk as quickly as possible. So I'm not discreet once I have it. I'll step out of the shop. I'll step away from the road or to any space where there aren't too many people, wind that bottle open and take a big, hard chug. And my body immediately remembers. It's like when you throw a baby into a swimming pool. And in that first moment, there is a rush of contradictory and conflicting feelings. There's shame and there's fear, because I've done this thing a dozen times and I know where it's going to end. But there's also euphoria and satisfaction, like an itch being scratched. And there's also relief, because fuck the consequences. It's my body. It's my life. And if I want to blow it all up, then that's my decision. And then I might walk, just wander the streets. And that first hour or so of being truly alone by choice, there'll be surreptitious swigs from the bottle when there aren't many people around, and for a while I'll feel energized and capable, and I'll have all of these ideas about how to grow my business or the next book I'm going to write, some creative project. And I'll sit on a park bench and I'll excitedly tap into my phone messages to people in my network like, I've had this incredible idea, we'll have to talk first thing in the morning. But of course there is no talking first thing in the morning anymore. And I know that. I know it when I'm writing it. It's embarrassing. Because I know consciously, even while I'm sat excitedly, like, we have to talk about this crazy idea that I had, I know that I'm not going to speak to that person. It's going to be 2 weeks climbing into a bottle and then 6 months climbing back out. But still, I'll keep walking, feeling tipsy. I'll start having random conversations with strangers in which I'm too passionate about what they're saying. I'm a little too close. It makes me cringe to remember, but I'll be deadly interested in whatever it is they're saying. Yeah, how's the weather been good? Yeah, it's been great. Oh my God, the weather is probably the best I've ever seen. Listen, we should talk, we should exchange numbers so we can talk about the weather some more. And eventually I'll get home and I'll be drunk by then. And I'm still convinced that everything's awesome. And I might spend an hour sitting at my desk, writing emails to people, convinced that this is just the one day that I need, just to open the valve, take the pressure off. I've earned it. And I'll sit down, and for an hour, I might even be productive. I might even have some good ideas in that time. And I'll write down weird to-do lists of things I have to achieve in the coming days. I have to use this alcohol energy, this booze power that I've given myself, and I have to put it to use creatively. And those lists, when I sober up eventually, they make no sense at all. It's completely disordered thinking, distilled, and it is humiliating to read it back. And by now, at this stage of the binge, I'm drunk. And then I'll do weird things, like really weird. I'll tell myself that I deserve this. I deserve this one day to myself. I've earned this drunken day, and it's just for me. And I will literally put on music, just play it loud in my apartment, and I will just enjoy the sensation of being drunk, spinning around with my arms out in my apartment alone. Anyone watching must think it's utterly psychotic. But soon, that's the honeymoon period of the relapse is very quickly over, and the mood will change. And at that point, I'll want to be sad. I'll seek things out to make me sad, because I want to feel feelings. I'll get maudlin and sentimental, and I'll message old girlfriends that I haven't heard from for 20 years and tell them how much they meant to me and what an impact they've had on my life. And then I'll watch videos of dogs being reunited with their owners, and I'll cry big burning tears of emotion, like it all just has to come out of me. Or I'll be horny by that time, but obviously not able to do anything useful about it, already too drunk by that time to act on it. It would take me about 4 hours to go through 750 milliliters of vodka. A little bit longer if it's a litre. And once that first bottle is finished, or close to finished, I'll probably black out for a while. I'll just flop into my bed, and then I'll wake up again at about 2 a.m. and my head will be spinning, and I know that I have to work in 5 hours. So I'll convince myself that I'll go out now in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. since I'm already drunk and I can't sleep. And what I'll do is I'll just go to the 24-hour gas station and I'll grab a shooter of vodka and I'll bring it home with me, get a few hours sleep, and then when I wake up, I'll quickly drink the shooter before work, and that should hopefully stabilize myself so that I can function as normal. But really, it's already over at that point. At that point, it's a race to the bottom. And by the time I get to the gas station in the middle of the night, it's not going to be a shooter of vodka. It was never going to be a shooter of vodka. I've already convinced myself by the time I get to the window at the gas station, oh, well, I'm already drunk. I've already ruined the next day. I may as well just get another litre. And that's what I'll do. And I won't bore you with the intellectual gymnastics it requires to get to that decision. If you know, you know. I always need more at that stage. When there's the smallest, the tiniest atom of alcohol in my body, I will need more, and more, and more. One drink too many, 1,000 never enough, etc. And when I get home, it'll be a process of telling myself that I'll just call in sick in the morning. I'll take that one day to myself, and then I'll get back to normal the next day when I'm sober. But as you can tell, at this point, the only purpose in my life is the acquisition of more and more and more. And what's important is that whatever I've bought, there is enough left that I can start drinking immediately when I regain consciousness after blacking out. I always have slightly more than I need. And that's just chasing its own tail, isn't it? There's no breaking out of that spiral. And from that point, from that second or third bottle, once I have made that decision that I deserve a day or two to myself, the next 10 to 14 days are interchangeable with each other. I'll continue that pattern, about 1.5 litres of vodka or whiskey per day. And that's because I will always black out before I've finished the bottle. And then I'll wake up and then immediately drink it and then convince myself that the damage is already done. So I may as well just lean in, go and get another one. The cycle continues. By around the third day of a binge like this, there is no rational thinking left. It's no longer a case of taking the next day off and then sobering up. I already don't want to be sober at this point. No, I'm no longer aware of sobriety as part of my reality. It's not a consideration at all. It's not that I'm rejecting the option to be sober at this point. It's more like I'm not aware that it's an option. And on that third day, I might eat and I might poop. But that is the last time I will do either of those things in a healthy way for a very long time. And it's around this point that things really begin to disintegrate and fall apart. And here, things begin to accelerate. And I'll explain why. By now, when the relapse had begun, I was still enjoying life. I was outside. And although I wanted to keep a distance from other people, I was enjoying being around them. And that's changing at this point. I don't want to see anyone at all anymore. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want any human interactions. So instead of going to the shop to buy more vodka only when I need to, now every time I go, I'm buying 2 or 3 bottles at a time to reduce the amount of times I have to interact with another human. And because I have that much, I'm drinking faster and faster and faster. I have now closed the curtains and retreated almost entirely to the bed, pulled up the covers, and absolutely lost track of the passage of time. It no longer matters to me. I wake up in the daytime, I drink. I wake up at night, I drink. I've missed someone's birthday, I drink. I wake up, now it's daytime, drink. I wake up, now it's nighttime, drink, so on and so forth. If I go half an hour without stuffing my face with alcohol, the shame and the regret begins to creep up, and I'll drink twice as much, twice as fast to stamp it back out. By now I've closed the curtains, turned off the lights, I've closed all my email accounts, I've turned off all the notifications on my phone, or in fact my phone is probably already dead by now and I don't care. And by now I probably will have pissed the bed. So now I have to sleep right on the edge of the mattress, right up against the wall or on the floor. 3 or 4 days in, I'm disgusting by now. I've had no food, no showers, no water. I've no responsibility. My teeth are starting to turn yellow. My tongue looks like it's wearing a yellow sock. My eyes are red. I stink of sweat and piss and alcohol. And at this time, people are worried about me. People have been trying to contact me and they can't. I've shut everyone out. Occasionally now, over the next few days, there might sometimes be people in my apartment, people who have come to check on my welfare. A boss, maybe. Maybe my boss has convinced my landlord to let him in so he can come and check that I'm still alive. And I will have either convinced him that I'm okay and I'll be back at work tomorrow, or I will have told him to go fuck himself and that he should get the fuck out of my apartment. And then maybe the next day it's the police in the apartment because I might have put something vaguely self-harmy on Twitter or on Instagram, and I've got some of my followers scared, and some of them have my address, so they have sent the police, and the police will arrive in force because they know that they've been to my apartment before and that I have put up a fight. I have this ability, unfortunately, to be quite persuasive even when I'm hammered. And because the rent is paid and because I'm not committing any obvious crime, the police really can't do anything. They won't take me away, even if they should. Even if throwing me in the back of a meat wagon and dragging me in handcuffs to a detox centre is exactly what I need. They just can't do it. And if they tried, it would be a fight. I've had to be carried out of my house by the cops more than once because I just wanted to be left alone to drink myself to death. But usually no one can do anything. You can't drag someone out of their own house because it doesn't matter how much you care about me or how much I need to be helped. In the eyes of the law, I'm doing nothing wrong, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop me drinking. It's all on me. And the moment the cops are gone, I'm emptying another bottle straight down my throat so I can pretend that it didn't happen. After about a week or so of this, I'll be starting to puke as well. Just straight off the side of the bed onto the floor. And by this stage, there's nothing inside me. I remember LD saying that if it looks like you're throwing up coffee grounds, then you should go and see a doctor. And I wish I'd had that information so much earlier than I did. I wish I'd heard somebody else talk about it the way he did, because a lot of times I have looked over the side of that bed and seen exactly that. All of the vomiting will remind me that I have to eat at some point. So either I'll order in some trash food, Domino's pizza or something, or even worse, while I'm out buying more booze, I'll just buy a bag full of Haribo and sweets and snacks, just pure sugar, instead of anything with any kind of nutritional value at all. My body at this point is just going crazy. There are alarm bells ringing just all over my body, and the only thing I can do to silence them is drink more. And I hide under my covers. And by this time as well, it's usually in silence. Usually by now, I'm not even watching old documentaries on YouTube or anything. I'm just in the bed, barely alive, in silence. And I hate the silence. I sleep with headphones on. But I'm too drunk to coordinate my hands, to load up another video, or to put on music. Just not coordinated enough because I've started to really lose grip. And then by I don't know, the 10th day or so, things are really going sideways. And I can no longer stave off the thought that I've probably lost my job, that I'm getting evicted because I keep bringing the cops to the apartment, that my family are freaking out because they can't contact me, and that my girlfriend is almost certainly going to leave me. And the only response 10 days into a binge like that is to go deeper. And then there's a weird psychotic stage after all of that. Because I've been drinking such strong alcohol so fast and for so long that I start to get withdrawal symptoms even before I've stopped drinking. So usually in delirium tremens or in alcohol withdrawal syndrome, you get the symptoms after you've stopped, as your body starts to recompensate. But I've started to develop symptoms even before I stopped drinking. It's very weird. So if I don't keep up that hectic, suicidal pace, if I slacken that pace, then I start to get withdrawal symptoms. Like, I will have serious detachments from reality even before the withdrawal starts. And I'll be sat on my sofa in one moment and I'll be having a conversation with an old teacher from school that I haven't seen for 25 years. And then suddenly I'll be back in my bed and I'll get out of bed and I'll walk around the apartment confused, looking for that teacher, looking at the sofa, but they were never there. And I'm never sure whether I was actually up and having a conversation with an empty chair or whether it was entirely a dream. And I can't tell the difference. And that's scary. So I'll drink. By this stage, when I'm starting to hallucinate before I've even finished drinking, I need external help. There's no helping myself anymore at this point. Now I need intervention. Because if I'm left to myself, there is no coming back. This will continue forever until the inevitable. And the best case for me, if I am alone, which I usually am during these periods, the best case is that I drink myself unconscious enough that I am out for long enough that once I regain consciousness, there's no alcohol left in my body. I've begun to sober up because I had blacked out for long enough. And apart from that, I need somebody else to step in and smack the bottle out of my hand. And the past 3 times that I've been through this cycle, that person has been my girlfriend. She is able, the only person ever, who's been able to walk me back slightly and to convince me to stop and to go to a detox clinic. She's the only person I've ever listened to in that condition, and I owe her a huge amount. And when the active drinking subsides, once the relapse begins to abate, that's the worst part, I think. There's a reason why people who drink like I do, people like me, there's a reason why we don't want to sober up. And that's because a lot of the reason we drink the way we do is because we are actively rejecting responsibility above all else. Family pressure or work pressure or debt or mental health that's out of our control, whatever it is. We don't want to face that responsibility, so we retreat into a bottle for long, extended, dangerous periods of time. And the reason that we don't want to get sober is because there is a knowledge that alongside the physical and mental horror of alcohol withdrawal, which is so unimaginably bad, there is also a reckoning. There is a reckoning to be faced. And I can tell how long I've been in relapse by how mouldy my coffee machine has become. And the more orange mold there is in that coffee machine, the more damage I have done, and the bigger the reckoning that I have to face. That's why we don't get sober. But look, people have an unbelievable capacity for forgiveness because people just want other people to be okay. That's it. That's all we care about. We don't care about all of your bullshit, all of your reasons. In general, it is true to say that everybody wants everybody else to just be okay. And I tend to think that my own story is quite extreme in some regards. But I am right here talking about it. So far, I've made it through. And that's because I eventually allowed other people to help. And it doesn't matter how hopeless things get. It doesn't matter how deep that tailspin into relapse gets, or how futureless things seem. It really is possible to turn that stuff around. So that's it for today. A little bit of an insight into the loneliness and the degradation of one of my relapses. I hope somebody out there found it useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, good luck out there.